first thing we're going to talk about tonight, Jordan, is the injuries. The injuries for the Tigers. We're only 2 weeks into the season, and I wouldn't exactly say that the injuries are mounting for the Tigers, but there are some injuries to significant players. Not significant injuries to the significant players, but there are injuries to significant
Except
players.
for one. Except for
one. We'll get into that. That's really unfortunate. Peter Woods, first and foremost, everybody saw the kind of cut block that kind of took him out of the game. He did end up staying on the sideline. He had a knee brace on. He was signing autographs after the game. Seems like he's going to be okay. Dabo said famously he's quote unquote day-to-day, which we all know now. What does day-to-day mean? It just means he's not out for the season. That's all it means. Outside of that, we have no clue what day-to-day means. Tyler Brown, another guy that got hurt early on in that game, rolled his ankle early. I think Tyler Brown only had 5 snaps in the game. They pulled him out as more of a precautionary. That's what Dabo said. So he is day-to-day as well, which means he is not out for the season, thankfully. And then our 2 guys that unfortunately did suffer pretty serious injuries. Shout out to Caleb Nix. Tore his ACL and then played the rest of the game on special teams.
He tore it on the first play of special teams.
The first play of special teams, and then proceeded to play the entire game on special teams and was quoted as saying it felt weird.
Yeah, I bet.
So he's got a torn ACL. He's got to get surgery. He's out for the season. But shout out to him for completing the game and showing his toughness.
Guys to play in recent Clemson memory to play on a torn ACL. Deshaun Watson and Caleb Nix.
That's right.
That's
right. That's good company.
That's good company.
And then Kobe McLeod, everybody saw him kind of go down. We knew if you were watching the game, if you were watching the broadcast, it didn't look good when it happened. Yeah. It looked even worse when the trainers were down there assessing his knee. It looked very serious. And sure enough, he is out for the season with a knee injury, torn ACL. Got to get a knee surgery. So Kobe McLeod, that's a pretty big hit for the linebacker core. He was a guy that was going to play a big piece as a rotational piece for that linebacker core this year. So that's the one true big kind of gut punch for Clemson early in the season. It's going to mean a bigger role for guys like D. Creighton, Sammy Brown. Those kind of guys are going to have to step up and fill those shoes that Kobe McLeod left.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's big because they made it clear like he was the guy they trusted coming off the bench in relief. That first guy off. So that is going to put more stress on guys like Sammy Brown, D. Creighton, Jamal Anderson. They're gonna have to get up to speed because there's going to be a lot more. You're already testing your linebacker depth a little bit, which is something we talked about. We have. We've said and talked about, how we feel about this group. But obviously you don't want to get too far into your depth because where you're pulling a guy like CJ Kuba Taylor or something like that, or Drew Woodaz and ending their red shirt because, you're struggling with linebacker depth. So that wouldn't be ideal. So it's going to be important for these guys to stay healthy, but it's even more important that they get up to speed because you can't have Barrett Carter and Wade Wood as talented as they are playing, all the snaps for an entire season and they don't get hurt. That's pretty wishful thinking. So especially with the nature, the demanding nature of that position in particular. So, it's a pretty significant loss for this group. And so we're going to have to, it's going to be a good opportunity for the younger guys, but it also means that they're going to have to get up to speed because you can't have them come in and not know what they're doing when you need to give Barrett Carter and Wade Wood as a breather. So we're going to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
And hate it for Kobe too because this is his first real. He's been a guy they've talked about and they've raved about in practice and in camp, and just kind of his instinctual nature. He's certainly not the biggest or most traitsy linebacker there is, but they've really lauded his instinctiveness, and that's about as important of a trait as any for the linebacker position. So and he was definitely one of the leaders, especially for the younger guys. So hate it for him that his season is over. But we'll get a chance to see some of the younger guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Good opportunity for the young guys to get in there and kind of make their mark on this season and see what they can do. Sammy Brown comes to mind. He's the guy that led the defense in tackles this past week. Had some bright spots, had some spots where obviously he's a freshman and he's making freshman mistakes and he needs to work on it. But again, you got to feel promising about what you saw from a guy like Sammy Brown. And then, you got other guys that are going to step up, D. Creighton and Jamal Anderson and all of those guys and see where the pecking order falls now that, Kobe McLeod is unfortunately out for the season with the knee injury. You hate it for a guy like that. It's never good. But you just hope that you have the proper depth behind him that can step up and fill the gap. The coaches were really high on Kobe McLeod coming into the season. So we'll see where it all shakes out. I think it's safe to say from an injury standpoint after 2 games, I know it's just 2 games, but Clemson's sitting in a pretty good spot. I think Peter Woods will be just fine. I think Tyler Brown will be just fine come the North Carolina State game. So I look for those guys to definitely be back, hopefully, and be big contributors in that game.
Yeah. With Peter Woods, I'm going to be interested because, I feel like Dabo was kind of wishy-washy.
Yeah.
Like I could see a scenario where they don't, where they hold him. But that would make, that would definitely mean you need to get more out of the guys behind him in the edge group. So that means more from Cade Denhoff and Jaheim Lawson. I would like to see more AJ Hoffler. I think he's a guy he's too good too talented not to get reps. And so if they decide to hold Peter, even if he's good, kind of like what they did with Marcus Tate,
right.
Marcus Tate was ready to go on Saturday against App State, but they held him because they felt good about Colin Sadler out there, and he had a much better game than he did against Georgia for sure, which is to be expected. But he was very much more prepared for the moment and not making the kind of the young guy mistakes that he was making in the Georgia game. So
absolutely.
And to answer your question, David, Marcus is good now. They expect him to play.
Yeah. If you ask Dabo, he's probably still day-to-day though.
Yeah.
But he could have played in that game on Saturday. They just chose to hold him, and it was a good decision. They did not need Marcus Tate in that game. Good to give him another week, 2 weeks really, with the bye week, and get him really healed up and ready for the big stretch of the season. Zaire's still alive? I don't think so. He didn't record a single snap in the game, which is, in my opinion, really telling of what the coaching staff thinks of where he is. And I mean, if you don't get in a game like that, then when are you going to play? And I'm not speaking, don't get me wrong, I'm not speaking ill will of Zaire Patterson. I'm sure he's a great kid. But it's clear that the coaching staff, for whatever reason, does not believe that he's ready to go out there and play, because otherwise he would have at least gotten, 4 or 5 snaps in the game.
It could be that, or, we've had players be in the doghouse before, and Zaire is a player that has had, maturity questions in the past. I'm not speaking from any sort of knowledge there. But there's some, especially it was kind of interesting that he didn't see a snap in that game, and makes you wonder if there's something beyond, his play going on. Cause, Dabo talked about him a little bit, coming out of fall camp and in spring and during fall camp, and that he was playing the best football of his career. So whatever that means, it is up to you as far as interpretation. But, I thought he would at least get some snaps being one of the older guys in the
Hey guys, I think we lost Jordan there for a bit. He seems frozen. Can you guys still hear me in the chat?
Am I good now?
Yeah, you're good now. There you go.
Okay, that was weird because it was kind of delayed. So I was saying, Zaire is And see, now I had a good flow going, and now I lost it. But Zaire is a guy that certainly has had his questions in the past, and it makes you wonder like what if there's something else going on there if he's not playing. But again, I'm not speaking from any sort of knowledge. I don't have any sort of insider knowledge about that whole situation. And maybe it's a situation where he's checked out. Could be that. That's wouldn't be the first time that's happened. So
right.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll certainly see as the season goes on, see if he gets any sort of playing time. Keep an eye on it for sure. All right, guys, catch Clemson live on your favorite audio podcasts. Our show, our long-form content is now streaming on all the audio platforms where you listen to your podcast. So go check out Clemson Live, rate, review over there, and hopefully we'll see you over there as well. Thank you guys so much for the support. All right, Jordan, moving right along into our next topic, and that is we're going to put a bow on this App State game, right? It was a great game. It was fun to watch. As a Clemson fan, it was like being lost in the desert for 4 years, and suddenly you found that mirage, right? That oasis out there with the water and the palm trees, and all the stuff, the fruit and the coconuts and everything you could possibly want, right? A little oasis out in the desert, and that's what Clemson's offense essentially was for all Tiger fans on Saturday. But we have to turn the page. We have to put a bow on this game. But before we do that, before we put this game in the rearview mirror and kind of project forward about what Clemson's going to look like for the rest of the season, what all of this means, how do you marry up the game between Georgia and the App State game, right? Let's talk about and let's break down one more time what we saw in the game. I'm sure you've gone back and watched it. You've digested it a little bit more. It's not as fresh. It's not as raw. Some of the emotions have come down a bit. Maybe we were at 30,000 feet, and now we're back on the ground, right? We've landed. So thoughts on that offensive explosion, specifically in the first half, right? First 8 possessions, touchdown. Every single time we touched the ball, it was a touchdown in the first half. And then obviously we started rotating in the depth, and, the production obviously went down. So thoughts on the game. What do you think about that offensive explosion? Was it real? Was it real? Or are we still dreaming?
I'm laughing at the super chat that we just got. Oh man. I do want to, but before I get into my thoughts, I got to address it.
Oh, God.
Kuzi, my man, he says, thank you for the $5. He says, hey, Pookie, love you, JoJo Bear. Cade Heisman run incoming. G, yeah, I'm with you, brother. Good to see you. Oh man,
that's funny.
I don't even know how to process that, but thank you.
I think you should change your handle to JoJo Bear.
Yeah, I might just change my name to Jordan JoJo. What was it? Pookie
Jordan JoJo Bear Bowman.
Yeah, we're gonna have to roll with it. But seriously, Kuzi, thank you for the $5. That's my guy. Good to see you, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you for your support, man.
But no,
right, thoughts on the App State game. Offensive explosion, crazy day, something that I don't even think the most optimistic of Clemson fans expected. So now that we are, several days removed, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely think the emotions have come down for sure. Not completely, because it's a lot of fun just going back and watching that. Yeah. Just kind of the euphoria you got, like it hasn't worn off completely. But I have gone back and watched the tape, and I do think that this game was pretty instructive as far as like the progress that Cade has made. I don't think he's putting 7 touchdowns in a half, every week moving forward. But I think what you did see was Cade is clearly in a much more comfortable place as far as reading the field. He's trusting his offensive line more than he did last year. He's playing within the structure of the offense. That has been the biggest bugaboo for Cade his entire career, is playing within the structure of the offense and being able to execute when he does play within the structure of the offense. That was great to see, because I mean, he had some really special moments and really awesome moments, but a lot of his production was just playing within the flow of the offense and executing and taking advantage of the easy stuff. And that was the thing that we had talked about a bunch, because once you can do the easy stuff, the big plays, they just present themselves to you. It's not like you have to force it. And that's what you saw. And it definitely helps when you have, playmakers that are helping you out and making those plays for you, right, which obviously has been the problem in the past. So I think this offense has certainly turned a corner of some sorts. I don't think that means that they're like 2019 LSU and they're about to put up 60 every week, like I said. But I do feel like that this was instructive, that this offense can and will have, more ups than they will have downs, and that's certain. We'll take that, with the talent that you have defensively and kind of the quality of your remaining schedule. You have to feel really good that this group can be one of the better offenses in the ACC, and we'll go from there. And so, again, App State is not a scrub football team. It's not like we were playing Charleston Southern. And listen, we saw how they played against Charleston Southern last year.
Not like that.
And they put up a ton of points in that game, but we did not come out of that game feeling all warm and fuzzy about the offense and Cade. This is certainly different. This was the Garrett Riley experience. This was the Cade Klubnik experience that we thought we were getting last year.
Yeah. You make a lot of great points, and this is what we expected, right? This is what we thought eventually could happen when we hired Garrett Riley last year, right? In the first year in the system, we thought we would see something closer to this. And you can, I know there's a lot of people out there and they're saying that, hey, pump the brakes, it's App State. Yes, it is App State, absolutely. Fully understanding that it's a group of 5 team. Clemson still went out there and scored a touchdown every time they touched the ball in the first half. And I don't care who you're playing, regardless of the opponent, that is an exceptional execution day on offense. And that's what Cade and the offense did, right? Cade's numbers real quickly, 92.3% passing, 24 of 26, right? 378 yards, 5 touchdowns passing, right? Just in the first half, right? He ran for another 2 touchdowns for a total of 7 touchdowns that he was responsible for in that first half, right? So that kind of offensive explosion is special, right? And regardless of opponent, you have to recognize that, okay, we have now seen it from Clemson. We've finally seen it from the Tigers. We've seen that they are capable of producing explosive plays. We haven't seen – I swear we ain't seen an explosive play in like 3 seasons. I'm sure there's 1 or 2 here or there, but it feels like we have legitimately not seen an explosive play in like 3 seasons. And Saturday, we saw like 10 of them, right? I think he was perfect on throwing passes, like the middle to intermediate passes. So the explosiveness is there. The athletes are there. The receivers, I think, showed on Saturday what we thought in the offseason, that this wide receiver group could truly turn into a special group, right? And by season's end, all the people saying that no one knows a single receiver on Clemson's roster, nobody can name them, that would change. That's what we thought was possible heading into the season. And it seems now that that is something that can definitely happen, right? Cade, deservingly so, Walter Camp Player of the Week, Offensive Player of the Week, and Davey O'Brien, the National QB of the Week, ACC Player of the Week as well. So shout out to him for getting those awards. But it was super fun to watch that offensive explosion. And if you go back and see it, the protection was great. The protection was great. So shout out to the offensive clean pockets, Cade not getting happy feet, not bouncing around, not bailing out of the pocket before he even feels pressure, right? Stepping up in the pocket a lot of times and delivering throws, and most of the time and on target. So I think it was refreshing as a Clemson fan to see. Now, you're not going to expect to get that sort of performance week in and week out. But now you know that Clemson is capable of the explosive play. Phil Maffa has a gear that nobody knew he had, running away from freaking DBs at 230 pounds as a running back. That's crazy. I didn't know he could run that fast. And I don't even know how fast he ran, but I'm sure the analytics know. They were in the catapult system. I'm sure they know exactly how fast he was running. So shout out just to the overall offensive performance, specifically in the first half. I think the defense played pretty well for the most part. They started subbing like at the end of the first quarter on defense, like massive subbing.
Yep.
So shout out to the defense as well. I think the depth got a lot of reps out there, and I think that'll pay dividends going forward. Young pieces got to see a lot of real-time game experience. And clearly you can see, unfortunately, pointing to the injury of Clobie McLeod, right? Just that quickly, you lose a big piece, right? So that time where those young kids get to get out there for a half or more, 3 quarters basically, and play football, that's huge. And that's something Clemson hasn't been able to do for a long time. But that was like a signature of Clemson through their big run, was emptying the bench, getting these people, getting these depth pieces, getting these young players real game time experience. And it always paid dividends because Clemson always had quality depth behind their starters.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, it was just cool to see. Like, we have not been able to say like, oh man, it's nice to not have to not have to sweat. Like, and usually we're talking about that like in the late second quarter, maybe at the earliest. So
Right.
okay, the game is in hand. We can put guys in. Like the game was over after the first essentially over after the first 10 minutes.
Yes. Yeah.
And that might be conservative given like just what they weren't really doing anything offensively against the first team. And so like, man, like I was so it was a nostalgic feeling, like a familiar feeling, but it was like, man, I haven't felt this in a while. So that was cool. And yeah, I mean, I think you saw a lot of young guys flash at different points and in different ways offensively. Obviously, we can talk about the receivers, Wesco, Moore, Jake Brenning still at tight end, all had nice days. And then you had the 2 receivers who got the brunt of Clemson fans' ire last week. They in Adam Randall and Cole Turner. I thought they made some nice catches as well, especially Cole Turner. That throw in this that catch in the second half from Vizina, who we'll talk about. Like that was, I mean, it was a great ball by Vizina, but it just an athletic play by Cole Turner to just go up and get it.
Yeah.
And then we've seen him do that before, so it wasn't a surprise. It's just like, man, like, can we get more of that and more consistently? And so, and they did a lot of different things to get guys the ball. That was the one thing that I had been, after the Georgia game, I was so frustrated with, was like, man, it just seems like we're not doing really anything to get our playmakers the ball.
Right.
And
there was a lack of creativity. I mean, you watch the Georgia game, you're like, what is this, dude? Like, there's no creativity whatsoever. Like, there was almost no trying to just scheme and get your playmakers in space with the ball.
Right. Like it was like the most creative thing we could think of was a screen. Like,
not very creative,
yeah. Especially
when you're playing Georgia. Have you seen their linebackers? A screen's not going to work.
Yeah. And so that was refreshing to see. I mean, you saw a lot more motions, and especially, I mean, That's something I've been talking about, and I don't know why we saw so little of it. Well, it wasn't even that we saw little of it in against Georgia. It was like they just didn't build on it, on any of the motions that they did, and they didn't do anything, creative to get, like I said, to get their playmakers the ball. They did that this time, and they did different things. I love that reverse play to Cole Turner. That was like, I was like, man, oh wow, that instead of having him run a go ball, you say he's the fastest guy on the team. Well, get him out in space on just a simple on a reverse. And all of a sudden,
I think you even
got a first down.
I think you even mentioned that in the preview, like when we were previewing the App State game. You said something to that effect. I remember you saying something about getting him the ball on a reverse or something and using his speed that way.
Exactly, because he's not a refined receiver. I mean, that's clear at this point. I mean, maybe he'll get there, but he's not like a prolific route runner or anything like that. He's just a really, really athletic piece out there. And so, like, getting him the ball, and especially in spots, like, again, I want the younger guys to play more, but I think like a guy like Cole Turner has utility in this offense, and that's what we talked about before the season.
Yeah, look, it was super exciting to watch this offense, and I think it shows the potential that this offense has going forward for the season. Again, yes, I understand we were playing App State, and the competition is certainly going up after this, even in the ACC. However, when you can execute to the level that Clemson executed in that first half, that was a really good offensive performance, regardless of who you're playing. And I don't think that can be overstated. Just that, you know how many times me and you have talked about, I just want it to look easy. I just want it to look smooth, like get in a rhythm and go out there and execute, right? That's what Saturday was. That looked easy. Everything looked easy for Clemson's offense. And I think the biggest thing, and Dabo kind of mentioned it, was momentum, right? I mean, football is truly a game of momentum. And hitting that big pass to Wesco and scoring that touchdown on the third play of the game, it was over after that. Cade was feeling himself. The receivers were feeling themselves. The defense was feeding off of it. The O-line was protecting their tails off, right? Everybody was feeling it. The stadium was going absolutely nuts. Every recruit that was in there said that stadium was outside of their mind the entire game. Dabo even commented on it in the post-game press conference of how impressive that atmosphere was for a home opener in the Valley night game. Yeah, those are typically raucous and loud, but you are playing a group of five, right? But the fans showed up, showed out, and it was an amazing atmosphere and really exciting to watch, right? But it truly is a game of momentum. And I think, what if Cade misses on that first play, right? Does that offensive explosion happen? You know what I'm saying? So I don't think it could be understated of hitting that first big play and the effect that had on the rest of the game. You go back to that Georgia game, right? What if he'd have made that first pass to Phil Maffa and it would have went for 15, 20 yards? Would that game have went any different? Maybe not. But again, it's a game of momentum. And I'm not saying we would have had any more success against Georgia. They're an amazing defense. But it's possible you would have had a little bit more success because it would have just felt different, right? If you would have came out play one against Georgia and hit a 15, 20-yard swing pass to Phil Maffa, that game would have felt different initially. Instead, as a Clemson fan watching it on TV, he throws it at his knees and it's an incompletion. You're like, here we go. Here's the Clemson offense we know and love, So I just think that's an interesting conversation to have between the two games, and we'll do that in a minute. But how'd you feel about the defense? We've talked a lot about the offensive explosion, and rightfully so. We haven't seen it in forever, and it's clearly something that Clemson fans love to talk about. You love to go back and watch the highlights. But I think I want to shift gears to the defense. What did you think of the defense in this game? How did you feel about – obviously the first team had a lot of success in that first quarter, and then we started subbing and you saw a lot of the depth. So what did you think about that first team defense initially? And then after that, what do you think about the depth going forward pretty much for 3 straight quarters against that App State offense?
Yeah, I think obviously the first quarter you got stops on every drive. I mean, the first team defense, I thought they played well. I mean, gave up a couple of third down and longs, which is kind of a continuation of a trend from the Georgia game. Didn't love that, but Joey Aguilar's a talented quarterback. They have some good receivers. So I expected them to make some plays. So they had some. It wasn't not a perfect first quarter, but you got stops, and that they didn't really build much momentum. They didn't get more than one first down on any of their first half drives or first quarter drives. I mean, and so I was pleased with that. Second quarter, there was some sloppiness, and that when you started subbing guys in, which was to be expected, but wasn't anything. I didn't see anything that I was like, oh man, like that's not fixable. I think it was just a lot of youth. You played some guys that certainly weren't ready. Dabo talked about it. He said, when you're in a game like that, you got a lot of guys that want to go out there and play, and some of them aren't really as ready as they think they are, and so some of them got exposed.
There you go.
And I think you saw that in the second quarter, especially. But I thought they sort of bowed up and cleaned it up in the second half. They only allowed 7 points in that second half, so that was good to see. But yeah, I really think it was what it was. Wasn't a banner day for the defense by any means, but I thought they played well enough, and I thought you saw the young guys just getting experience and kind of taking their lumps, which we've done we used to be during the playoff years was something that was a regular thing, and that was why you were able to build that depth, and why you came out so prepared. And the next year when those older guys and those starters leave, you have guys that have played some ball and are just ahead of the curve, compared to other teams. So I mean that was a good thing to get experience, and you definitely saw some guys flash defensively. Thought the best players on the day. Stephon Green was great when he came in. Sherrod Koval, especially on the rewatch, he really stood out to me. I was like, man, he's a guy we talked about all offseason in that safety room, that we were just, man, this feels like this is the year for him to really emerge, because he was going to be a bigger part of the offense. Not the offense, the defense last year. Then he tears his ACL, or he gets hurt. And so, like, I thought he was pretty phenomenal. Saw some of the young guys, the freshmen. Sammy Brown led the team in tackles. Obviously, you saw the talent. He's going to be a really good one for you. And who else? Ricardo Jones getting a pick. Good to see, especially in that red zone opportunity. I pointed it out when it happened, but like when they showed Dabo on the broadcast, he said, like, you could read his lips. He was like, we need a turnover right here, boys, and they got it.
They got it.
Yeah, Ricardo is going to be a really good player.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to be a really good player for you. I thought it was just a good opportunity to see some of those young guys. Some of them didn't look so great, but it wasn't really that shocking. Ronan Hannafin got a lot of burn and I talked about a little bit at safety. He was flying downhill. He was trying to play it. He was really aggressive, but he just wasn't always in the right spot. That's to be expected. He's learning a new position. He played linebacker in high school and not defensive back. So this is kind of a newer thing for him. So he's kind of seeing how he grows into that role, because I think it's trending like that's going to be a more permanent move, and he's going to that's kind of where his long-term projection is. We'll just get to see him grow, and I think that's good for him.
Yeah, I think that's going to be super fun to watch him grow into that position. I think it's going to work out really well for him in the future. Obviously, he's got the drive. You could see it on Saturday, even though he was out of position a few times. But I second pretty much everything you said. It was exciting to see all of those young players go out there. Mistakes were made. There was missed tackles. There was people out of position. App State made plays that they shouldn't have made. But again, that's how you grow quality depth. That's how you grow a roster that is going to be able to withstand the ups and downs of the seasons in major college football. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be guys banged up from week to week. On any given week, you're going to have to ask that depth piece to play starter snaps, and they're going to have to be ready, right? And these are the type of games where you put them in there and you let them get that burn, right? You let them get those mistakes on tape because, to your point, right, a lot of those dudes do think they're a little bit more ready than they actually are. And then they go out there and play, and then the coach goes on and turns the tape on in the meeting room and is like, hey, what's this? Right? And then they realize, like, oh, I do have a lot of work to do, right? So, and then the guys made it the good stuff will take that and they'll run with it, and it'll drive them, and they'll just get better. And I think it was really good for the defense. I was thinking it was really good for the offense to see Vizina out there, to see him finally in a game, type experience. So these young guys got a lot of burn, and it was really good to see. It's something that Clemson hasn't been able to do in a long time, and it's much needed. You have to be able to develop that depth, and games like this are very important and go a long way in doing that.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's going to be interesting. Obviously you have to build on it, and that's kind of it's the first time in a while, from the Clemson fan experience, we're like, man, I really can't wait to see this team play again. And I hate that we have a bye week.
But that's how a lot of people feel right now. But it seems like this team's made of the right stuff. Seems like this team's got really quality leadership, player-led leadership.
Yeah.
And I think that goes a long way in maintaining momentum throughout a season and never getting too high, never getting too low, right? That kind of stuff is, coaches go in there and give their speeches and they kind of set the tone. But when you have that player-led leadership, that goes a long way in a team. So